Hello and welcome to Introduction to Physics. So what we're going to do now is lab number 22, which is entitled Electric Circuits. So if you would go to Canvas and then Modules and then Labs and then the Unit 4 Labs on Electricity and Modern Physics, and then open that. And then down at the bottom of the Microsoft Excel worksheet is going to be a tab that says 22 electrical circuits. So you're going to click on that. And we're going to go through this lab so that you should be able to do this one at home. And I'm going to guide you through it. So instead of using actual batteries and wires and resistors, what we're going to be doing is using the PhET simulation. So you're going to need to go to the internet, type in the word PhET, P-H-E-T, and then the simulation that you want to be looking at is the one that is entitled DC Construction Kit and Virtual Lab. So let's see if you can find that PhET simulations. So it's the DC Circuit Construction Kit and then Lab. So that when you open it up, you should have a blue screen that on the left hand side is circuit elements that can be put onto your screen top. And then on the right hand side is where you've got a voltmeter and an ammeter. Okay, so it'd be a good idea if you have both of these documents open. So the Excel worksheet that has the actual lab on it, and then the PhET simulation so that you can do the lab. So let's start with the pre-lab questions. So for what is the purpose of this lab, if you'll scroll down until you get to the body of the lab, it will say purpose, and then just cut and paste that response there under the pre-lab questions. Okay, then the safety instructions for this lab. Fortunately, there are no safety instructions because you can't break the computer simulation. So don't worry about that. So just put in none for the safety instructions. Okay, then for question number 3, what are the symbols for a resistor, a power supply, an ammeter, and a voltmeter? So if you would go down into the body of the lab, you'll see that I give you those pictures. And so what you could do is cut or copy those pictures and then paste them into for question number 3. So I need for you to know what the symbol for a resistor, the power supply, the ammeter, and the voltmeter are. Okay, question number 4 is what does an ammeter measure? So if you go down into the pre-lab part of the lab, it will explain that to you, and you can just copy that down for question number 4. Okay, for question number 5 is you're trying to figure out how should you hook a ammeter into a circuit and how should you hook a voltmeter into a circuit. This is very important if you're actually using ammeters and voltmeters with real electricity, because if you don't hook them in correctly, then something is going to catch on fire or burn out. So on question number 5, you're putting the ammeter in, and the question is, should the ammeter go in series or should it go in parallel into the circuit? Now you can look this up on the internet. And then question number 6 is, how do you put the voltmeter in? So should the voltmeter be in series or should it be in parallel? And again, if you have problems with this, then just look it up on the internet. Then question number 7 is, what's Ohm's law? So there's a formula for Ohm's law. So just write that formula down there. Okay, so we're going to go down to the lab itself and we're looking at the materials that we're going to use. So the power supply, the role of the power supply is going to be played by a battery in the FET simulation. And then we're going to have an ammeter and an ohm meter, but not, we're going to have an ammeter and a voltmeter, but not an ohm meter. So we don't have the capability of measuring the resistance of the resistors like it says in the actual lab. So with the FET simulation, we can measure the voltage and we can measure the current, but we cannot measure the resistance with a meter. Okay, if you keep going down, you'll see there's the Ohm's law, equation 22.1. So we're going to be making use of that quite a bit. And then the rules on series and parallel circuits are given in that green and pink box on the lab. So let's go down to the lab itself, and under the procedure it says number 1, we're going to select a resistor and then measure its resistance. So if you go to the FET simulation, grab the resistor and drag it onto your screen. Okay, now if you were to do if you click on the center of the resistor, you'll see that down at the bottom is going to be a little picture there that shows the resistance of that resistor. And you can either slide the slider to change the resistance, or you can click on the black arrows, and so that's going to change the resistance of the resistor. So let's keep it at 10. So the resistance of our resistor is going to be 10 ohms. So write the resistance of the resistor in your lab. In that first blue and yellow box, type in the resistance of 10, and then you don't need to put the word ohms because it's actually given there. So you just got to write the word 10 in that first yellow box. Okay, now go back to the lab and go down to part 2, measuring a voltage with a voltmeter. So I'm going to stop the video here, and then when we come back we're going to continue with part 2 of the lab.